seriously deficient and extremely troublesome. That's how Special Counsel John Durham described the FBI's investigation into charges of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign in the 2016 election.
Well, the report, 4 years in the making, was finally made public yesterday. The conclusion: the FBI never should have opened the probe into the former president. Caitlin Burke has the details.
Special Counsel John Durham's report claims the FBI rushed into its investigation of former President Trump over allegations of collusion with Russia in the 2016 campaign, and that it ignored its own principles of objectivity and integrity, resulting in serious damage to the Bureau's reputation. The report slams the FBI for launching the probe into the former president, since, quote, neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion.
It was a hoax, that there was no evidentiary support, that the world's greatest law enforcement agency didn't meet anybody's reasonable expectations.
Durham accusing the Bureau of using raw, unanalyzed, and uncorroborated intelligence and relying on investigative leads provided by or funded by Trump's political opponents. In response to the report, the FBI pointing to changes made back in 2019 by Director Christopher Wray, stating if those reforms had been in place in 2016, the missteps identified in the report could have been prevented. Speaking to Fox News' Brett Baier, former South Carolina Representative Trey Gowdy said he's not convinced the FBI has done enough to prevent something like this from happening again.
I mean, you talk about policies and procedures in place. What policy and procedure is going to govern the head of the FBI?
Durham also found the FBI failed to critically analyze information that ran counter to the narrative of a Trump-Russia collusive relationship, including allegations of foreign influence on the Clinton campaign. Former President Donald Trump responding to the 300-page report, repeating accusations of his own that the FBI's investigation into him is the crime of the century.
This investigation cost taxpayers $6.5 million. And while it did ultimately find the FBI to be at fault, it did not discover any sort of deep state conspiracy by intelligence officials and law enforcement to derail the 2016 Trump campaign. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Well, here's the thing going forward. Do we ever trust the FBI again? If it is quite clear from the Durham report that this investigation should have never happened, well, then why are we not saying, should there be fundamental changes, and should we have anything like this ever happen again? Please understand just how serious this was. In a president's first months in office, there's an attempt by the FBI to completely cripple his administration, where you have to have attorneys represent all the staff members, what they knew, when did they know it, and what are they trying to do to hinder the investigation. Because the charge was collusion, but what they were really doing behind the scenes was trying to set him up for an obstruction of justice claim. That was clear throughout that 2-year period. They were trying to hang him on that, as opposed to, well, we know there wasn't collusion, and we knew it at the point in time when we started the investigation. That's the amazing thing to me, is that why is the FBI allowed to get away with this? And there seems to be absolutely no penalty for anybody involved. Well, in other news, a government default is less than 3 weeks away. Still, the White House and Congress are no closer to a deal raising the debt ceiling. Ephraim Graham has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, congressional leaders returned to the White House today for a second summit on raising the debt ceiling so the government can pay its bills. President Joe Biden says both sides want to reach an agreement, but House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he doesn't see any progress. The national debt stands at $31 trillion. One item on the table is reclaiming $30 billion in unspent funds dedicated to COVID relief. The June 1st deadline to raise the ceiling is fast approaching. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warns even a last-minute deal could harm consumer confidence and threaten the government's credit rating. Turning overseas to India, where dozens of Christians have been killed in religious violence in recent days. In the state of Manipur, troops are now on the ground to restore order. About 40% of the state's nearly 3 million residents are Christian. Global Christian Relief reports some 34 churches have been destroyed in about a dozen villages. More than 50 Christians have been killed and thousands have fled their homes. The violence flared up after a peaceful protest by Christian tribes over government plans to give privileged status to a Hindu ethnic group in the region. Violence against religious minorities is increasing around the world. Monday, the State Department released its annual report detailing the status of religious oppression and violence in nearly 200 countries. CBN's Brody Carter shows us how everyone can help those suffering for their faith.
The report shows a rise in this violence and oppression in several countries. I spoke with CBN senior reporter Gary Lane, who's traveled to over 120 countries, and he's witnessed this oppression firsthand. He says the best thing that we can do for religious freedom is to give our time, finances, and prayers.
The key is, how serious are we when it comes to China? If you've got as many as 3 million Uyghurs imprisoned in genocide, and we say it's genocide being committed against them, then what are we doing about it? Why are we still buying Chinese products?
The annual report raises big questions about religious freedom and our part in it. It follows both the good and bad of international religious freedom.
Unfortunately, the report also documents the continuation and, in some instances, the rise of very troubling trends.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken designated these 16 countries of particular concern. Governments in part of the world continue targeting religious minorities, using a host of methods including torture, beatings, unlawful surveillance, and so-called re-education camps.
Religion can be such a powerful force for good in the world. Societies who seek to restrict it or use it to harm others cannot achieve their full potential.
The extensive report notes several concerning hotspots, including attacks on the Catholic Church in Nicaragua, with more than 160 attacks against the church last year. Other crimes against humanity come out of China, where Muslim Uyghurs are suffering genocide and imprisonment for their faith. And notably, the people of Iran, led by the killing of Mahsa Amini, a young woman arrested and beaten by the so-called morality police because her hijab did not fully cover her hair.
So it's a responsibility that we have as Christians, not to just sit on our couches in North America, but to do something about it.
Gary, it's 2023. People are still being persecuted and murdered for their faith, if not more so than ever. Why do you think that is?
In Nigeria, the Fulani herdsmen are being financed to clear Christians out of their villages and off the land because they want the land. In other countries, it's really more of a commitment to theology and doctrine. Like in Iran, Jesus Christ said, they hated me first, but they will also hate you because of me. So Christians are being attacked around the world.
The State Department started observing the International Religious Freedom Act in 1998 when it was signed into law by then President Bill Clinton. Today, the information gathered is used to advance religious freedom in oppressed nations. It's also used to shed light on actions impacting religious freedom and also to preserve and protect that human right for everyone. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Brody. Time, finance, and prayer. We can all do something. Gordon?
And let's pray for the persecuted church around the world. We're seeing a rise in persecution against Christians. And here in the United States, it's mostly verbal attacks. But in India, well, they're burning down churches. They're beating Christians openly. There seems to be no recourse to the government. The government actually seems to be supporting it. In China, the oppression against the church, I call China this great accordion that they will absolutely crack down and then appear to relax in order to get people thinking, well, we now have religious freedom, which is guaranteed in our Constitution, only to see it crack down yet again. We need to pray for those who are in persecuted countries and also realize they are actually praying for us that the cares and concerns of this world will not choke out the word in our cultures and make the Christian message unfruitful. Let's keep that in mind. So if we're concerned about things, the cares and concerns of this world, let's be caring and concerned about the things of the kingdom of God. In 2002, Joel Rosenberg's novels burst into the political thriller scene. 2 decades and more than a dozen novels later, Rosenberg is still entertaining readers with his newest release, The Libyan Diversion.
One message is New York Times best-selling author Joel Rosenberg's latest novel follows the adventures of CIA operative Marcus Riker as he hunts down one of the world's most dangerous terrorist groups. The stakes are enormous as the head of the terror group, the Libyan, plans the most daring attack on U.S. soil since 9/11. While Rosenberg's thrillers entertain, they also examine and raise critical questions about U.S. national security. In this book, that includes America's porous southern border, the growing alliance involving Russia, Iran, and Turkey, and American enemies expanding weapons of mass destruction. Rosenberg takes his readers on a literary roller coaster ride, one he hopes and prays will never come to pass.
Well, Joel Rosenberg joins us now from our Jerusalem Bureau. Joel, I got to congratulate you. Literally, this book is ripped from the headlines today. You've named your chief villain Nakba, and that went off this week. And then you also say that our southern border is wide open to terrorism. And then just yesterday, they caught an Afghan national on the terrorist list trying to cross our southern border. So tell us, what inspired the storyline?
Well, Gordon, great to be with you from Jerusalem, although I love my almost annual pilgrimage to Virginia Beach to be with you or your dad. I've been on the 700 Club for all but my first novel, and I'm just so grateful to you guys. Look, you know, when I wrote The Libyan Diversion, I had never written a political thriller that involved terrorists coming in through the chaotic, unsecured southern border of the United States, northern border too, and much less bringing dirty nuclear bombs. That was new for me, but the more I looked at what was happening on the U.S.-Mexican border, I thought, this is insane what's going on. The United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, commands, instructs the President of the United States and the federal government to protect the states and the American people from invasion. That's the word. And the more I looked at it, I realized there is an invasion. 5.7 million illegal people have come illegally into the United States through Mexico. Several million have been caught, but several million have gotten away. And the question, as you know, an Afghan national on the terror list just this weekend or the last few days, 83 so far this year. 98 people on the terror watch list last year were captured trying to get into the United States through Mexico. But how many have we not stopped? And what are they planning? That's the fictional premise of The Libyan Diversion. But I got to tell you, it feels scarier than living in Israel. And we've just had 1,400 rockets shot at us in the last few days.
Well, what do you think is the solution here on our southern border? It just doesn't seem to ever come to any kind of agreement between Democrat and Republican. Will it actually take some incident to say, okay, can we please unite and solve the problem?
Well, I hope not, Gordon, because, after 9/11, everybody said, wow, we never imagined radical Islamist terrorists hijacking planes and turning them into missiles. So how would we have defended ourselves against that? Now, imagine a scenario in which you had a 9/11-esque event or something worse. In the Libyan Diversion, it's much, much worse than 9/11. But let's just imagine something as bad as 9/11. And let's imagine that the people that are responsible, that the FBI and the CIA realize that they got into the United States through that southern border, or through Canada, but mainly through the southern border with Mexico. There will be no forgiveness for a president, a party that allowed that to happen. We all know what's happening. And I got to say, it's a dereliction of duty of the President of the United States not to pay attention and enforce the U.S. Constitution when it says you've got to protect the country from invasion. If 5.7 million people, including terrorists, flooding into the country is not an invasion, I know it's not the normal type of invasion, but drugs are coming in. Fentanyl is 50 times more deadly than heroin, right? And it's flowing into the United States. You got drug cartels, you got human trafficking, and you got terrorism. The Libyan Diversion imagines the worst case scenario. What if Washington isn't serious about this? But I got to say, for all the, and not everybody is a big fan of Donald Trump because of certain things he said or did, but look what he did on that border. He was serious about building a wall, the Remain in Mexico policy, and increasing the budget and flooding Border Patrol officers to that border, strengthening the governors. Biden has just done the exact opposite, and it's not surprising that you've got almost 6 million people, including terrorists. So Washington has to change, and if it can't be bipartisan, then one party has to make that change because it's just too dangerous. And I just pray, Gordon, that the Libyan diversion premise never comes true, but it really, really could.
Well, do you think we're actually having a political diversion, that our attention is more focused on our fights between ourselves? And is that diverting our attention from the real problems in the world?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, the story that you guys led with was a fake FBI investigation. I mean, the investigation was real, and it cost a lot of money. It cost a lot of time. But what did it prove? It proved that it was the Democrats, the Clinton team, that was actually luring the FBI in to investigate the sitting president of the United States, President Trump, and his team, to do what? To discredit them and to distract them, to divert them from the issues of the country in the earliest months of a very sensitive administration. And yet, to President Trump, Vice President Pence, CIA then Director Pompeo, and others, they did a pretty good job staying laser focused on trying to and protecting the U.S. border in the South, right? The number of people flowing into the country dropped dramatically in the Trump years. So, you can have all kinds of criticisms from every direction, but Trump was serious about the border. He was serious about protecting Israel. He was serious about making peace in the Middle East between Israel and the Arabs. He got a lot done. I'm not trying to give a whole list, and I'm not endorsing. I'm just saying that the contrast between the way the Republicans under President Trump and Pence and Pompeo handle things versus Biden and his team, it's night and day. It's not even close. And I would like to think that the Libyan diversion is fun entertainment, that it's a type of thrill ride that just, make a great novel, make a great movie, make a great Netflix series or whatever. But in some ways, it's also a warning that if Washington continues to let itself get distracted by non-issues and doesn't focus on the drugs, the human trafficking, the terrorism on that southern border, there's a disaster ahead of us.
Well, let's talk about the disaster. Let's talk about the worst case scenario. In your book, that is a dirty nuclear weapon being smuggled into the U.S. It's leaving radioactive traces in a tunnel between Mexico and the U.S. But do you see that as a possibility? Could a dirty bomb somehow end up in our country and actually go off?
Well, more and more, I think that the answer to that is yes, Gordon, and that's what terrifies me. I had this conversation 2 years ago with then former CIA director and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He's a friend. He's been a reader and a fan of my novels over the years, and I'm grateful for that. I was interviewing him at a Museum of the Bible event in D.C. on the weekend of 9/11 in 2021, the 20th anniversary. Long story short, I asked him, what am I not asking you? What is keeping you up at night, Mr. Secretary, that worries you about U.S. national security that maybe I haven't asked you? I've asked you about China and Iran and Russia and all these issues. He said ungoverned spaces in northern Mexico. Essentially, he said that the Mexican government has effectively surrendered large swaths of territory to drug runners, drug cartels, human trafficking organizations, organized crime syndicates, and so forth. And he goes, because of that, and because of the Biden administration not taking it seriously, you can get almost anybody and anything across that border if you try hard enough. And sometimes you don't even have to try hard. He didn't mention terrorism specifically, and he didn't mention nuclear bombs in my conversation with him. But as I extrapolated forward, I realized of all the changes that have been made over the last 20 years after 9/11 in Homeland Security, right? And these have been good changes, but they've been expensive and they've been hard. Terrorists, it's not easy to fake a passport now and fly into America. And it's not easy. You can't essentially break into the cockpit and take over a 777 and turn it into a missile, because of those doors and the locks and the air marshals on the planes. But you can. So how would you get in? If you wanted to create 9/11 again, or something much, much worse, like in the Libyan diversion, how would you do it? You can't do it by plane. You can't do it by cruise ship. You can't do it by container ship. And you can't just drive this stuff across the border in a car and a truck, because all of it has high sensors, and we're watching for that. So what do? Well, you just walk across the border. This is insane. I mean, this is rising close to impeachment level conduct. I mean, Trump was impeached on 2 ridiculous charges. But if Biden is going to not keep the United States Constitution to protect us, United States, American people and states from invasion, the Republicans will have to consider, does that rise to an impeachable offense? Because how else can you rattle the Biden administration to say this is deadly serious? It's not like an issue where, it's not a budget argument saying, I don't want to spend so much here. I'd rather spend it here. I don't want to cut taxes that much. Their side wants to raise it. That's a normal debate. Protecting the border from terrorists, drug runners, and human traffickers, abusing and taking advantage of little girls and vulnerable women and little boys. This is horrific. It's almost unimaginable that you have a president or a party that thinks this is okay. What in the world is happening in America? I got to say, all the challenges we have here living in Israel, border security is not the issue. We take border security very, very seriously. We built a wall, and we've got missile defense systems, and it works. It's not perfect, but Israelis take border security very, very seriously. Biden does not. And I think that is leading to a potential disaster.
Well, Joel, thank you. Thank you for the book, and thank you for immigrating to Israel. I like to remind Christians that if you read the Bible, you'll figure out Israel is the safest place to be in the last days. So you've chosen wisely.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Bless you.
All right. Joel's latest book is called The Libyan Diversion. You can find it wherever books are sold. Well, as newlyweds, Mark and Stacy racked up debt, juggled bills. They never imagined that one day their business revenue would skyrocket to $200,000 a month, and they'd be loaning capital to companies. Well, the turnaround began when the couple discovered the power of giving.
In their free time, entrepreneurs Mike and Stacy Healy enjoy spending time together. Over the years, they've developed multiple revenue streams from direct sales, marketing, consulting, and business solutions. They also loan capital to small businesses.
Over the last few years, with what everybody's been dealing with pandemic-wise, there are businesses that are on the verge of potentially going out of business. When banks can't do about 80% of the loans, we can do that kind of thing.
As newlyweds and young entrepreneurs, the idea they'd one day loan money was a fantasy. They just juggled debts.
We knew we wanted to be in business for ourselves, but we would try to keep our overhead super low. And when we needed something or when any emergencies came up, we would just charge it. When we got pregnant with our first child, we did not have medical insurance. We had to take care of it by our own means.
We got 2 cars on credit. We got diapers on credit. We got just about everything for quite some time on credit.
We were constantly trying to decide which bill should we pay first.
First 2 years, we'd accumulated maybe $35,000 to $40,000 worth of debt.
Stacy, raised in a Christian home, discovered a radio program that offered debt solutions. She and Mike followed up with an appointment for advice.
It wasn't all about budgeting either. Yes, there was part of that, but it was more of getting to the root cause of why we were depending on credit cards and loans versus relying on God to meet our needs.
At one meeting, Mike prayed with the advisor, a former businessman and pastor. Later at home, Mike had an encounter with God.
I was just kind of sitting there complaining to God. I'm trying to be an entrepreneur, want to have a family, that kind of thing. Literally, I felt like I caught on fire on my couch. And next thing you know, I just burst into tears. I just sat there and wept on my couch. And I didn't know what exactly happened, but it just felt like there was a freedom that just happened. It was pretty exciting because then it was like a whole new path and things really started to open up from that point on.
After that encounter, Mike surrendered his life to Christ. Stacy renewed her faith too. They started attending church and learned more about tithing and giving.
It says that he will put a hedge of protection around your stuff if you tithe, right, and you give offerings above and beyond that tithe. God himself says, test me in this. And so the way I looked at it was, okay, I'm going to test him in this. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Mike also embraced the biblical principle of giving and receiving after he gifted his van to a large family at church. Within 2 months, Stacy won a new special edition Corvette in a fitness contest.
We decided, let's take this, let's sell it, and we paid off debt. It was great.
They tithed off the sale of the Corvette.
And I remember going to church with that $4,000 tithe check, and I was like, this is what it's all about right here.
Then later on, he came back to me and said, did you realize this is Luke 6:38? The same measure you give, it will be measured back to you. So we sold a van and we got a vehicle in return. It was amazing when we realized that.
With $40,000 of debt paid off, the couple says their trust in God and his financial principles grew. They noticed that as they tithed and gave, they prospered in business. Once they pledged $50,000 towards their church's building fund.
I was getting some new business clients coming in with what I was doing at the time. We just kind of looked at each other and were like, hey, something has changed. And the only thing we've done was we started tithing.
After that, Mike believed God wanted him to give $10,000 a month for a year. Mike had just started a new business, and the pledge was equal to all his monthly income.
It was hard, but I knew that he had heard from God, so I just did it afraid.
By the time I'm probably 6 months into giving $10,000 a month, I am way past $10,000 a month in earnings.
Within the next year, their business sales revenue grew from $5,000 a month to $200,000 a month. Their income increased too.
It just skyrocketed. We knew it was God. We knew that it was part of the promise. We were faithful and obedient, and this was what was coming back because of that. It's a law. Every time we gave, it was out of thankfulness and worship to God. We just wanted to bless people a lot of times because we could, and we knew God would take care of us in return.
I would say for somebody who's never tithed, never given offerings, just read what it says in the Bible. It says, trust me. It says, test me in this. God says, it's like only place in the Bible God says test him in it and see if he won't operate on your behalf and open up the windows of heaven and pour out such blessing you don't have room enough to contain it.
Well, Mike and Stacy proved the scripture, and I love what Mike said. I'm going to do this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then I'm going to stop. He said, okay, I'll test you, God. And you say this is true, that you watch over your word, you do all this. I'll test you in it, and you see the result. Here's a promise. It's from Proverbs chapter 3. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. With Mike and Stacy, everything they got, every increase they got, they said, okay, we're going to tithe. We're going to honor the Lord with our first fruits, with our increase. And when you do that, wonderful things will happen. If you want to start doing that, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000. Just say, I want to join the 700 Club. How much is that? It's just $20 a month, 65 cents a day. Some of you can join at higher levels. We have those, 700 Club Gold at $40 a month. 1,000 Club is $1,000 a year. That breaks out to $84 a month. 2,500 Club is $2,500 a year. Founder, $5,000 or more a year, and that breaks out to $417 a month. Whatever level you decide to do it right now. 1-800-700-7000. And when you call and join, we'll send as our gift to you my father's latest book. It's an audio version of it called The Shepherd King, The Life of David. It will give you insights into David's life, how he was a man after God's own heart. And you'll be able to just download. You can stream. You'll get 4 audio CDs. If you join at 700 Club Gold, you get 3 copies. If you join at 1,000 Club, you'll get 5 copies. And then something I really like, this 10-day devotional from the Psalms of David. You'll learn how David prayed. What were his prayers recorded in the Psalms? And you can pray them too. So the 10-day devotional's added in as a special bonus gift. It's yours when you join. So call us now, 1-800-700-7000. Terry?
Well, when you join the 700 Club, you're helping people literally all over the world. Like this family living in the mountains of Peru. When they cooked with water, their food turned yellow. When they drank it, they got sick. Yet with only one source of water, they had no choice until you came to their rescue.
Apollinaria, her husband, and 2 children are part of the Quechua people group. They live high in the Andes Mountains of Peru in almost desert-like conditions. Finding clean water to drink is among their greatest challenges.
Here, the water is not good. It is salty. When I cook with it, the food turns yellow. When we drink it, the water makes our stomachs sick and gives us diarrhea.
This is the water they use during the 3-month rainy season. During that time, they get water from a shallow pit well that they dug for themselves. 8-year-old Angie knows the water is dangerous.
When I drank the water, it tasted sour. It made me sick and it lasted for days. I got back pains.
During the dry season, they carry water an hour each way from the closest town. Sometimes the water runs out there before Apollinaria can get any, and she returns home empty-handed. When Operation Blessing arrived on the scene, we knew the water was unsuitable for human consumption. To fix the problem, we first found a new underground spring as a water source. Then we built a 2,600-gallon storage tank with chlorination to purify the water. Finally, we ran pipes to every one of the 28 homes in the community, including Angie's.
I am happy because we have clean water. We use it to drink, cook, and wash dishes.
I'm very happy. We are able to bathe, and Angie will be able to drink as much water as she wants.
Thank you very much to the people who gave us clean water.
I don't know about you, but I look at that water and I just want to yell, don't drink that. But what option do people have when that's the only source available to them? Listen, 700 Club members, you really are not just touching and making life more convenient for people. You're saving lives with what you're doing, and we want to say thank you. If you're already a 700 Club member, would you consider going up to the next level so we can help even more people in need? Here are the club levels you can choose from. A general membership is $20 a month. That's 65 cents a day. You could go up to the 700 Club Gold level, that's $40 a month, or join the 1,000 Club level, $84 a month. We have a 2,500 Club level, you can see it there, $209 a month, or become a founder. That's $5,000 gift, $417 a month if you do it that way. Our number's toll free. It couldn't be easier. 1-800-700-7000. Just call and say, I want to join the 700 Club. And when you do it, will you do it using Pledge Express? That's electronic monthly giving, means your bank does all the work. It's really pretty convenient, pretty wonderful, and it saves us some administrative costs, so even more of your gift can go right into the lives of the family like you just saw in Peru. Our way of saying thank you for using Pledge Express is to send you a Power Life teaching. You'll get one of these every single month to remind you that you are making a difference. Gordon?
Well, as a CBN partner, you help people right here in the USA, like the military family you're about to meet. After they were transferred, the sale of their previous home fell through, and that depleted the couple's savings, maxed out their credit cards, and left them dependent on food drives to feed the family.
Navy Corpsman Joshua is often away from his family for months at a time. When he's home, he and his wife Ashley only have one vehicle, leaving Ashley without transportation. With 2 kids and 1 on the way, Joshua appreciates the way she juggles family responsibilities without a car.
I think she's Wonder Woman, honestly. I don't know how she does it.
When the couple transferred to California, they sold their home in Washington State. But a week before closing, the sale fell through because the house needed repairs. Now, Joshua and Ashley had to pay for the repairs and keep paying their mortgage.
I feel like I'm over my limits on stress, just trying to figure this out.
All I can say is I was just worried. There was a lot of crying involved. I just think about our kids. How are we going to feed the family?
Within a few months, the couple's entire savings was depleted and their credit cards maxed out. They relied on military-based food drives to feed their family.
If we can't get it sold, then the only real option is bankruptcy, trying to figure out what we need to do so we don't end up going into foreclosure on this house.
My faith sustains me through this. I'm constantly praying throughout the day about selling this house.
Their church, New Song Community, heard about their dilemma and called Helping the Homefront. Church leader Susan Bogus invited the couple over to share some big news.
CBN wants to take care of the next 3 monthly mortgage payments on your house in Washington.
It's amazing. I'm so happy.
Susan had one more announcement.
So Helping the Homefront is prepared today to take you to a dealership to buy you a reliable used minivan.
Oh my God.
How does that feel? Does that help?
I want to smile so big right now. It's just amazing.
I can't even begin to explain how much of a blessing it is to be able to have a way to transport our whole family and our future kids too.
I feel blessed, beyond blessed.
The couple headed to CarMax where their minivan was waiting. A few months later, their house sold, putting the couple back on financial track.
I'm so happy, and this is a huge blessing for our family. Thank you so much for everything.
Helping the Homefront is just one of many ministries here at CBN. We believe that active duty military families are serving too. If you have a spouse, if you have a parent who's active duty military, you know that you're serving because your spouse, your parent is away on deployment, away serving our country and serving all of us. And we want to honor your service. And so when there's more month than money, when you need help, we want to be there for you. That's why we call it Helping the Homefront. When you join the 700 Club, you're part of all of it, whether it's Helping the Homefront, Orphan's Promise, Operation Blessing, CBN International, Superbook, this show. All of these things are supported because people like you care enough to give. So if that's you, call us right now, 1-800-700-7000. If you're already a member, consider increasing. Consider going to 700 Club Gold at $40 a month. 1000 Club is $1,000 a year, and that's $84 a month. Now, when you call, make sure you ask for Pledge Express. That's electronic monthly giving. Bank doing all the work, and we can send as our gift to you, Power for Life. Monthly teaching CDs or downloads, your choice. So call us and say, I want Pledge Express, or you can go to cbn.com. When you give monthly on the internet, you automatically sign up for Pledge Express. We have another way to give now where you text to give. Text CBN to 71777. You'll get a text back with a link to a web page that is a monthly giving page. And when you do it that way, you automatically sign up for Pledge Express. So do it right now. Now, if you just joined the 700 Club, our way of saying thank you is to send you this other gift. It's my father's latest teaching on the life of David.
The Shepherd King, the life of David. You'll discover how a humble shepherd rose to become the mighty King of Israel. His spiritual insights can inspire you today. Plus, learn how David changed the course of history. Get this exclusive audiobook, The Shepherd King, The Life of David, and the devotional After God's Own Heart today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com.
Welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN Newsbreak. Religion is becoming less important to Americans. That is according to a new report by the Public Religion Research Institute. Among the findings in the in-depth survey is 16% of Americans said religion is the most important thing in their life. That's down from 20% in 2013, while the number of people who say religion is not important is up to 29%, a 10-point increase in the same time period. And only 43% of Americans in 2022 reported attending religious services several times a year, down now from 56% in 2013. Evangelicals in America believe putting their faith into practice leads to better mental and physical health. That is according to a report released by Gray Matter Research and Identity Concepts. 99% of evangelical Protestants agree praying, reading the Bible, and having a strong Christian faith contributes to positive mental health. More than 95% believe those practices also contribute to positive physical health. In other words, the gospel is literally Good news for those struggling with physical and mental wellness. I want to remind you, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.
In the way she dressed, the way she looked, and the way she was treated, Trish was forced by her father to live as a boy. His abuse left her feeling rejected and confused and set her up for a future filled with pain.
This is where you'll feel loved. This is who you are. You were born this way, and God has to love you this way. You can't change. And I embrace that lie.
Trish Choyke was 22 when she gave in to the feelings she had been fighting since she was 10. The youngest of 5, she was the victim of an abusive father who forced her to live as a boy in the way she dressed, the way she looked, and how she was treated.
And I was physically beaten. I was punched and hit in the face, abused even at 11, 12 years old. He always used to say, "You're stupid, you're never gonna amount to anything. I wish you were not born." Going to school, wearing boys' clothes, and I felt that rejection, and I felt different.
There were only 2 places Trish felt safe: at church, where she went with her mother and siblings, and with her older stepbrother, her protector and friend, until he committed suicide when Trish was 12.
The pain was so great. I could never really describe in words how that was. It was the worst pain I ever went through. It was that point that I turned from God.
Drugs and alcohol soon entered her life. They helped suppress the pain and a growing attraction to girls. Despite attempts by her mother and sister Ruth to get her to look and act like a girl, Trish couldn't shake the identity her father had forced on her.
I felt unloved. I didn't fit in. I held that in, and I had rage. I was angry all the time. I fought with other kids.
At 18, she married a man just to get out from under her father's rule. The 4-year marriage was rife with physical violence from both of them. It ended with Trish being thrown through a 90-gallon fish tank. Soon after, at 22 years old, Trish took on the identity of a man, changing her appearance, her mindset, and sexual pursuits.
I lusted after women. I was obsessed with being in their life. I also was obsessed with what a man should be like and what a man wasn't like in my life. And so I set out that I was going to be that man to them, that I was going to love these women the way that they should be loved.
Over the next 14 years, Trish's life consisted of sex, failed relationships, addiction to drugs and alcohol, lost jobs, and a suicide attempt. In her mind, there was only one outcome, one she couldn't escape.
You're going to hell. There's nothing you can do about it. You've lived your life this way, and that's it. And I would wake up with the shakes and the tremors, and I would grab that bottle, and I would chug it down just to hope that it would just dilute these thoughts in my head and this terror and this panic, and it would do nothing.
In all those years, her mom, brother, and sister Ruth were praying constantly.
God, please, go after her. I know you love her, save her. She was just going down a bad road, and we feared for her life.
By the start of 2010, a 38-year-old Trish was still battling addiction and engaged to a woman. Then, in March, her mother died. 2 weeks later, Trish was hospitalized with severe kidney and liver problems. Now, facing her mortality, she called Ruth.
She was crying, and I was like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "I'm in the hospital, and the doctors are saying I'm gonna die. Ruth, I don't want to die." And I was like, "You are not going to. You're not going to die. You call out on Jesus, you call on the Lord, and He is going to save you.
And He'll hear you." So I hung up the phone. I said, "God, you gotta help me, because I don't want to die this way." And in that moment, right after I said that, I felt this heat, this warmth, this peace, this fire shoot through my entire body, from my head to my feet, and it just kept coming. more. All those years that I didn't feel God, I felt him in that moment.
After Trish recovered, she broke off her engagement. She never used drugs or alcohol again. She also started going to church, where she surrendered her life to Jesus Christ.
Joy just began to come in my life. Purpose came in my life from him. I knew that every lie that I believed, everything I believed, it was buried now that I came to Christ. Like I would wake up on that joy that I'm saved, I'm really saved. I'm not going to hell, and God really saved me. I began to feel that just love of the Father.
Trish's journey to healing wasn't over yet. She says it came to an end one day after her pastor prayed for her.
God spoke to me that I'm your Heavenly Father who truly loves you, who has never left you. And in that moment, he said, I am healing your childhood. I'm healing all your hurt. When he healed all of that, it took away from me every desire for the same-sex attraction. It really did.
The following year, in 2011, Trish married Jack. They're both grateful for the love of Christ that reaches out, rescues, and heals those in pain.
My confidence is in him. It wasn't in the masculinity, the things that almost killed me in my life, but my identity is in him and that I was beautiful in his sight.
You know, one of the things that we love about babies when they're born, about children when they're young, is that they're so innocent. You know, there's just a beauty in that innocence, isn't there? There's also a vulnerability in that. You know, when someone wicked comes into your life, it can be a parent that was themselves wounded when they were young. It can be a relative. It can be a friend. It can be a person of influence, a teacher. You know, it's even happened in churches. Here's the thing. You know, when you get wounded that deeply when you're a child, it takes something to heal that. It takes someone to heal that. You know, it's not just a matter of counseling. Trish went through that. It's a matter of connecting with the Father heart of God. And how hard is that when your father has been the one who has both wounded you and deceived you? Satan uses people who are willing and available to him, circumstances that happen. You know, you've heard that saying, wounded people wound people. It's true. It's true. But what is also true, and equally more importantly true, is there is healing through Jesus Christ. You know, she talked at the end of her story about her identity. We were born in the image and likeness of God himself. That's what he says. That he loved us so much that he made a way in spite of our waywardness, in spite of our sin, in spite of the fact that we don't deserve it by the way that we live. He made a way for us to receive his love and then to spend eternity with him. You know, maybe you're watching today and somehow, some way, through someone in life, you have been deeply wounded. You know what they call Satan? The father of lies, the deceiver. The one who comes into your life and takes truth and besmirches it so you can't even recognize it anymore. Maybe you've never known it. Maybe you've never understood the Father heart of God that can come in alone to a hospital room and infuse someone who's deeply wounded with the kind of love from heaven that they've never experienced before. But Trish had that happen, and it changed her life. And then to receive healing prayer. Healing prayer involves praying the scriptures, the promises of God over someone who has been stripped of their identity by the enemy. If that's you, don't wait. Run to God right now. Understand that he is a father who will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He'll always be there for you. He loves you. He knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. And the Bible says he set out all your days before you. Let this day be the day that you come back to the Father heart of God and receive his healing. Receive his love. Receive the truth of his promises. They are for you. And it begins with saying, God, I messed up, not by my own doing, but by some others who have come in and in vulnerable places in my life have wounded me. But God, today, I'm setting aside bitterness. I'm setting aside unfairness. I'm setting aside physical woundedness, and I am saying, here I am. I want you. I'm drawing near to you right now. I'm asking you to forgive my sins as far as the east is from the west. I'm asking you to fill me with your Spirit. I'm asking you to change my perception of who you are and who I am so I can rest in your love. I can begin to understand who you created me to be and what path you've set before me. Would you give me eyes to see and ears to hear as you speak to my heart today? I give my life to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you've prayed that prayer, then you have begun an incredible journey and a changed life. We've got a packet called A New Day. It's free. What do you do now that you prayed the prayer? This is filled with wonderful information from you, for you. This is what God says. God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Bless you.